Hello, everybody, and welcome into this long-range edition of the Forecast for America by One Nation Weather. Let's go ahead and give you that August preview, including the tropics potentially heating up, as well as on land, maybe seeing some heat across many portions of the country. So let's go ahead and get right into that. It's July 11th, 2023. Let's go ahead and get into this factual forecast. So here's a look at your Friday, July 14th storm source and on land for us here. You can see we have this swirling low-pressure system. It's going to be creating northwesterly winds in many layers of the atmosphere aloft. So we're going to see this pushing on in, 20, 30, 40,000 feet up. And you can see, here's one cold front. You can see where that moisture sets up, dry air behind it, and then the other cold front right here. So there's really going to be a bunch of cool fronts moving through. And while no one of them will be able to support extreme storms, we are going to be looking at the potential for brief individual strong storms with these as they push on through. But the more dry air comes in behind each one, the weaker the next one could be. But then again, the next ones are pulling up some of that heat, which helps to offset that as well. So a lot of factors going on. But another thing I did want to point out before I get over to the severe weather outlook is that we also have a 40 to 50% chance of development with that system in the Atlantic, but do not worry. It is heading away and really expected to fizzle over the open water, a fish storm for us there. Now, the GFS model is predicting a derecho for us as we go into our Wednesday, July 12th, but the European model disagrees. If it were to occur, it would track out of Nebraska into Missouri and then towards Illinois as it looks right now, with that level 2 zone being what we're looking at now. But even though that is only a level 2 out of 5 threat, we still have that hatched area for the wind gusts of 80, 90, even up to 100 miles per hour, which could certainly come to fruition if we were to get a derecho type setup. It's just what the GFS model is predicting for us, which is why the Storm Prediction Center has predicted that at least to be a possibility. Now, here's a look at your Thursday, July 13th, a level 1 zone over a broader area that includes portions of the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, all the way back on off towards the Central Plains. Now, as we go towards our Friday the 14th, that cold front will shift on off towards the east, providing some severe weather potential along the East Coast, but we also have a level 1 to level 2 threat entering portions of the Central and Northern Plains, but especially into the upper Midwest and just the Midwestern states, which does include the Illinois and Missouri zones once again. As we go into our Saturday, that cold front dives on down a little bit further, providing some severe weather into the southern tier of the country as well as the northeast, as you can see. And then as we go into our Sunday, a new cold front develops. Yes, that could spark off some severe storms into the upper Midwest and the northern plains, but I'm watching a complex of storms that the models have developing late Saturday night and going into our Sunday, pushing on off towards the southeast through the Arklatex and eventually towards Mississippi and Alabama, as well as the Florida Panhandle. The models do have that line intensifying with that cold front out ahead of the other one, so we certainly need to watch there if enough heat instability could develop to support a dangerous line there. And then we also have the potential for some severe weather in the northeast, where we do not need all the rain, but both models are predicting the chance for an inch 2+ of rain in the northeast July 11th through 16th, as well as in that corridor where we could see that potential severe weather, maybe even derecho type potential setup as we go into our Sunday. But that is something just to watch, not to panic about right now. And then we've got dry air sitting into portions of the western part of the country. As you can see, both models really agreeing, but at least a good inch or two in many spots from the plains all the way into the east as this active setup continues. But as we go with the temperature anomaly towards July 21st, look at this heat expected to take hold of the country. The western 2/3, really most of the country getting warmer than average temperatures according to the Euro model. And you can see what that upper level pattern would look like. The cool fronts, that system would be shifting off the east coast, which would be pretty good news in terms of the severe weather potential. We would have some new energy trying to work into the west coast, but in general, this heat dome really building out and winning out across most of the country. But what's interesting with the GFS model at that same time, July 21st, showing a cooler air area in the upper levels of the atmosphere, continuing with that low pressure system over Canada, which could mean the cold fronts would last longer. So that's a difference that we have to watch as we go towards late month, because it could mean that we would continue to see those cold fronts if you follow the GFS model, but if you follow the European model, it would mean we'd continue to see heat building back and not as much storm potential into many of these areas now. The potential pattern August 1st through 8th, this is the CFS model, again really showing that ridging winning out at that point. And August overall looks like ridging will be entering Canada as well, which would support more heat over many parts of the country. Precipitation watch July 18th through the 25th. Again, here's those systems pushing towards the east coast and also producing those storms out of the plains. Drier air in the northwest and the west, but look at how some rainfall tries to infiltrate the west. That was that system that was offshore as we go July 25th through August 1st. And then you can see that dry air sinking southward into the eastern half of the country, if this model is correct. And you can see more of that continuing there, with more precipitation trying to enter the southwest. So that's something we watch as we enter early August. Another thing we watch as we enter August is the tropics, of course. And here's a look at the Atlantic sea surface temperature departures for us here as we look right now. And look at this, just well above average in many communities, or many spots there over the water. Many of these Caribbean island communities getting in on much warmer than average waters. So definitely supportive of storms. We just don't really have anything going through these areas. But what's interesting is many models are now hinting at more precipitation pushing through with tropical waves in the Atlantic, and then eventually that moisture trying to make its way towards Florida. But if you look carefully, you can kind of see that low pressure shape. It's almost like we're going to be having these systems come off the USA, and that's going to be why we're going to be seeing more of this precipitation here towards Florida, and that would be a better scenario with systems coming from on land rather than the tropics. But nonetheless, with these tropical waves pushing through the Lesser Antilles, we will have to watch that pattern, but there will be some drier in the Caribbean that could prohibit development. So here's a headlines recap. Non-stop storm train dominating through the 20th. I've said this already too many times. On and off cold fronts will dominate the pattern, bringing feisty storms, but also some brief cooler air behind it. Big ridge to move west to east? That's the question. The source of heat and drought in the west now could shift east, covering most of the U.S. with hot temps and dry conditions into August. Early August, hot and slightly quiet. That's the forecast for now. While the heat will block storms at times, it does look like some storms could infiltrate the ridge and produce some plains rainfall. Again, still very early on in that forecast, so stay tuned. And then the tropics might heat up a little bit as we progress towards August. It does look like more moisture will be moving through the Atlantic, though the Caribbean looks drier than average, which could help to get rid of some of those storms that try to push in that direction, or at least force them out to sea. So subscribe, hit the like button, and here are the credits. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, everyone.